Good tidings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Landy Lodge. Today's video will be focused on the Kingdom Hearts series, and more specifically, everyone's favorite sicko, Luxu. Based on everything we have seen in the latest developments in Kingdom Hearts 3 and Kingdom Hearts Union Cross, it is my prediction that Luxu is being set up to betray the Master of Masters. Yes, I believe that it is not only fate for Luxu to betray his master, but I also believe that the master himself is anticipating it. But before we spiral too deeply into hypotheticals here, allow me to flesh out all the red flags and examples of Luxu's impending betrayal of his master. This video is going to be mostly broken down into two sections. Section 1 will be Luxu's apprehension to the master's methods and ideas. Section 2 will be the master being aware of Luxu's incoming betrayal. Let's get started with his apprehension. Luxu's reaction to the master's ideas range from everything to grossed out, to confused, and even sometimes appalled. Let's start small and work our way up. In one of the first scenes we see with Luxu, when he finds out it's the master's eye, theoretically, in the Keyblade, Luxu is a little grossed out.
That Keyblade does have an eye in it. My eye, to be exact. Ew! Oh, you think that's gross, do ya?
On the surface, it just appears to be a quick gag, but I think it's a signal of something a little bit deeper. It's our first indication that Luxu finds some of the master's methods and actions a little unnerving. But now let's move on to some of the deeper stuff. Here we have the master deciding to let Luxu in on the secret of what lies in the black box. When Luxu finds out, take careful notice of his reaction.
But why? You'll see.
As we can see, whatever is in the box was seemingly off-putting to Luxu, to the point he couldn't even wrap his head around it and had to ask why. We'll circle back to this short interaction between the Master and Luxu on the other parts of the video, but it's time that we move on into Union Cross because that's where the real juicy stuff is. Let's talk about the scene in the Union Cross finale where the Master lays out his plans to Luxu. Luxu reacts very peculiarly in these scenes. First, take note of when the Master is in the middle of his explanation. Luxu states, "I can't, ... He never quite finishes his thought, but it's obvious to me that he is not in alignment with the Master's proposed method. And as if that apprehension wasn't enough, take note of what he says right here once the Master is finished fleshing his plan out. "I won't let you do that. We cannot sacrifice this much." Take note of his body language too, as the Master continues talking to him. When the Master finally finishes talking, we see Luxu let out a sigh and quietly make his way off screen. Now, especially take notice of the Master's dialogue in the moments that follow. "You are the key to everything. I have high hopes for you, Luxu the traitor." The Master says this immediately after his meeting with Luxu. He knew Luxu was apprehensive towards his goals and ambitions. He says he's counting on him and then immediately refers to him as the traitor. Very peculiar. Wouldn't you say so, dearest viewer? Now, of course, one might think that this initially is referring to Luxu in regards to the foretellers. But to me that falls a little short considering this dialogue took place directly after his apprehension to the Master's plan, which involved sacrificing the foretellers. But now, let's pad on a couple more red flags before we move on to the next section. In this scene where Luxu is having a discussion with Darkness, once Luxu gets confrontational, the Darkness questions him. Let's take a look into their exchange. Oh man, so Darkness clearly knew that Luxu was instructed not to interfere, and Luxu essentially responds with, "I'm doing this for me." We can see that even though Luxu is mostly doing as the Master instructed, he has his own ambitions and motives that justify him bending the rules, at least to himself. In another scene here, we again see Luxu combating the Master about his plan. We even see the Master acknowledge that Luxu doesn't seem too happy about the plan either. Upon the master explaining himself further, Luxu still is hesitant and says, "I don't like the idea of waiting for something to happen," thus conflicting with the master's instructions of look, don't touch. One last red flag before we move on will take us to the scene where Luxu is holding the true dandelion and bumps into darkness. Luxu recited the master's instructions of look, don't touch. But clearly we could see here that Luxu is not just being an observer. He takes it upon himself to plant a seed of light into the future. Now, I'm willing to accept that I am misunderstanding something here, but it seems very clear to me that Luxu is defying the master's orders of clearly being an observer. If I'm missing something, please feel free to drop it in the comments below. So, we can clearly see spanning across back cover, and especially Union Cross, that Luxu, time and time again, has expressed apprehension, doubt, and other times disgust at the master's words or proposed actions. And, as covered, this sort of reaction to the master is abundantly clear in the Union Cross finale when the master lays out his plans to Luxu, where Luxu flat out says, "I can't let you do that." But now, let's move on to the second aspect to this theory. That being that the master knows Luxu is going to betray him. Why don't we rewind to the scene we covered here with the master and Luxu. As we pointed out earlier, immediately after explaining his endgame plan to Luxu, and immediately after seeing Luxu react harshly and disobediently to the plan, upon him leaving, the master says, "May your heart be your guiding key. Whatever you think, however you feel. You are the key to everything. I have high hopes for you. Luxu the traitor." This to me is no accident. I think that Luxu's betrayal is part of the master's plan. He says not to let feelings cloud Luxu's judgment, but then says as he walks out, "May your heart be your guiding key. Whatever you think, however you feel." We, along with the master, know full well how Luxu feels, especially after that scene. Now, why would he say something like this? Also, remember that scene in back cover with Luxu and the master? Do you recall how the master referred to Luxu in that scene?
So that makes you the indisposable number 7.
The indisposable number 7, huh? And if you listen to his words carefully, the master is included in that. He says, "You 6 plus me is 7. Ask yourself, why isn't the master the indisposable number 7? What makes Luxu so special that he would hold that title and number? I mean, we all know how important the number 7 is in Kingdom Hearts. And here we have the master not only giving that number to Luxu, but referring to him as indisposable as well. Sounds like he's got a plan in place for Luxu the traitor. One final point before we close this out. Remember that the master is the one who gave the foretellers their names. For more on this, check out my video on the channel that explains it further. But keep in mind that the master chose to give him the name Luxu. Why? Well, remember that the traitor is the one who bears the sigil. Luxu is the only member of the foretellers who have an X in their name, the sigil. And if we look at Luxu, he has a pattern of being a traitor. We saw him as the traitor among the foretellers. In many ways, he served as a traitor to Master Xehanort, using him as a means to an end. Who's to say we don't get a three-peat and have him betray the master as he has done everyone else in the past? This was a fate chosen for Luxu by the master. And as if that isn't enough, in all these scenes where Luxu is expressing doubt or apprehension, it's almost as if the master is pushing him further and further. We've seen the master manipulate those around him with his words. Why would Luxu be any different? Luxu not being in alignment with the master's goals and ambitions is something that was portrayed to us time and time again in Union Cross. Sure, it would appear that Luxu is working in tandem with the master's plan, but then we see several actions on Luxu's behalf that would seem to contradict the master's instructions. The Luxu who appears before us now is very different, especially in demeanor, to the Luxu we saw in back cover. What we have upon us is a tired and weary warrior taking part in a battle that spans over lifetimes. Luxu the traitor, the one who bears the sigil. Are his days of being a traitor behind him? Well, ladies and gentlemen, the sickos and the normies, as far as the Landy Lodge is concerned, Luxu's days of being the traitor are far from over. Thank you so much everyone for watching this video. This is an idea I've had swirling around my head for months now, and I'm happy to finally be getting it out. Luxu is turning into one of my favorite characters in the Kingdom Hearts series, and I'm really excited to see what they will be doing with him from here on out. Do you think Luxu will betray the Master? Whether you agree or disagree, please share your thoughts and comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see all of you beautiful sickos and normies next time.